Hello gamers everywhere, I bring you breaking news. That's right, a Pathfinder MMO has been announced as a Kickstarter project by Seattle-based Goblin Works, who will be the developer and publisher. So they were only formed in 2011 and this appears to be their first project. Some of the stated names on board seem to be experienced in MMOs, such as Mark Calms, I don't know if that's the correct pronunciation. He's had experience as a lead programmer on City of Heroes, which was an unbelievably, undeniably charming MMO in of itself. But you see, MMOs, they are notoriously difficult to make and make popular on a long-term basis, especially because people buy the game and then they end up unsubscribing because it just fails people. They all come in with high expectations, but ultimately a lot of these games, they just lose subscribers. They don't go from strength to strength. I would say it's almost nigh impossible to become the world's best MMO in these times, and that's thanks probably mostly due to Blizzard's monstrous, all-encompassing World of Warcraft, historically speaking. It's held the crown dominantly now for years. I've been gaming on MMOs since before that came out. I was gaming at around about Anarchy Online sort of period. Really nothing else came out to be able to touch that in terms of popularity and mass appeal. And whether you personally love it or hate it, and I know that the division is split out there, you cannot argue that theirs has been the most successful business model in pure money made. This is one of the biggest reasons why the MMO market is just such difficult ground to break in. When I first saw this news, it made me a little bit nervous actually, that a company that's only just formed in 2011 are trying to take on an MMO straight away like this as a team. How does that make you feel, guys? Is this new company going to be able to produce an MMO that deeply satisfies the MMO audience out there in the hardest to break gaming genre of them all? Leave your comments below. Tell me how hopeful you feel. Is it a good thing that it's a new company like this? Can you see any plus sides, or are you a little bit worried like me? I'm prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt until we see some product. But the only issue is you really don't ever know if it's make or break until release. So they can leave you being strung along till then, and all it needs is one buggy release or something, and that can do it. If an MMO is released with too many bugs on release day, it can just die. And all that time has been for nothing. The smallest little thing like that, it affects everything. You've got to have a polished project on day one, then the fight only then begins. Otherwise, you just die straight away. Now, here's an interesting angle. One of World of Warcraft's biggest criticisms from those who don't like it is the cartoony style of its graphics and animated characters. And, I can quite clearly see that that is indeed the case. And at the time when I played WoW, I didn't mind it. But from looking at it now as a post-WoW player, I'm not so keen on it now. Yeah, sure. A note of interest with this in mind is Paizo's artwork direction for Pathfinder, because if you've looked at a lot of the artwork there, and you could see my video on the beginner box indeed, which illustrates this fact, if you pardon the pun, where I even mention it there. Some of the elves in that world, the art direction very much looks like WoW's Blood Elves. So it could be argued that yes, that's cartoony too, so surely won't it go the same vein, the supported illustration style? I mean, even in the Kickstarter book and the books that come with it and the content imagery that we can see so far, it is still the consistent artwork. One would assume that those graphics would come into game. How does that make you feel? Those who criticise WoW surely must criticise this. Dungeons and Dragons Online, Dungeons and Dragons being the game that Pathfinder essentially spawned out of as D&D 3.75, the D&D that wasn't version 4. It's been and gone and it's done its thing, and it was a reasonable enough game from me having played it a bit, but not really a heavy hitter amongst the MMOs, and it's now available as a free-to-play game. The sort of thing where bonus content is offered up. If you want to play one of the other races, then you pay and you open up other areas and things like that. You pay per bit you want. The initial game is free, and it's quite a popular business model now. It's certainly growing, and it is the one that I think a lot of the publishers feel is the way of the future and the way that MMOs are going. Can this even improve on the D&D game, DDO, which in itself wasn't a heavy hitter? So this is a Kickstarter project. Check the link in the info bar below for information on that page to see where they're at. But they need $50,000 US as their total to be able to make this. Now, it isn't the game that this pledges are going for, but instead a technology demo video. So not even a demo, but a video of a demo. So then when you look at that, it's like, ooh, a little bit, eesh. But at least they're kind of saying, well, you know, it exists. You get to feast your eyes on it, fanboys. $5 gets you that. Now, if you pledge $15, and this is how these Kickstarter things work, they have different tiers of reward for your pledges, and you still get the previous things behind it, before it usually as well. You get access to a PDF of Thornkeep, a book of that, which is a 64-page content, 32 pages of Pathfinder tabletop source book for Thornkeep, which is actually one of the MMO's 3 starter areas. So that's curious. Something being retained there from the tabletop roleplay aspects, coming in with association to the MMO. The other 32 pages comprise of Goblin Works developer content behind the scenes, making of the game sort of stuff. And then there are lots of other higher tier rewards that you pledge more and they give you more as a result of it. That's how Kickstarters tend to work. I am a fan of Kickstarters and concept creators getting to do something on the ground, of letting the consumers dictate, you know, whether this thing's going to be made, rather than some far removed execs who really don't get it. Which, you know, I think in terms of that, we ought to make a Kickstarter to bring back Firefly and take a paddle and hit Fox repeatedly with it. That's also in the Kickstarter if you pledge enough. That would be good. While I'm a fan of Kickstarters, this one does have me nervous, I have to admit. It's the difficulty just of it being an MMO. If anyone's saying, well, I'm making an MMO, straight away it's, you know, the old suck through the teeth, the old mechanic thing that they do when this is going to cost you a lot of money. The suck through the teeth happens first, and just anybody says they're going to make an MMO is like, are you sure you want to do that? But then when it's a new company, unproven, untested, and they're having to fund it through a Kickstarter, or at least fund the tech video thing through a Kickstarter, so hence fund themselves, really, surely, it's developmental money. And the problem is, it's not even like you can put out a bad one. You have to have a spot-on MMO, or you have a dead MMO. It's great or it's dead, really, in terms of the type of numbers they need to call it a proper success. I don't know. It just leaves me with a personal feeling of unease. How do you feel, guys? This is also partly the other reason why. Role-play table games, they have a charm about them, don't they? That's why those of you who play them, play them. A lot of you got sick of WoW and you've maybe come back to your role-play tabletop games because you realise that they are giving you something. They're giving you the opportunity to actually meet up with people in person and socialise, which is something that's so very missing in this day and age where we're all texting and IMing and PMing and forums and debates like that. And yes, we get wide access to more people, but our own friends we're doing that with as well, when we could be meeting them more and socialising face to face. And there's something beautiful about these tabletop role-playing games, that they still retain that one element of being able to do it, an excuse to get together and actually play a game over a few beers. Tabletop roleplay, as I'm sure we're all aware, has fallen in popularity, whereas computer games have risen up and taken their place, because people like a quick reward more, because it makes them feel better, they get access to it quicker, they have it now, instead of wait, you see, and the deeper, longer experience. What makes tabletop role players so good is that you aren't constricted like you are in computer games of any kind, even the best. In a tabletop roleplay game, you have the opportunity to do anything you want, when combined obviously with a really good GM. And it concerns me that we mustn't let the MMO, in fact any MMO, kill that tradition and that hobby. So my concern is this could further lessen the time being spent in roleplay tabletop games if people start thinking of it as the pure source. And then you get the new approaches to an MMO like this, and they might have played the MMO, and they might say, oh yeah, wow, did you know there's a tabletop for it as well? And you just bang your head against the table. You know, there's probably the Lord of the Rings kiddies out there probably saying, wow, they made it into a book. A game like this, they have to be very, very careful and make sure that they are supplementing gaming, not replacing it. Especially as they are the source they are coming from. They don't want to kill off their own source. Well, we'll have to wait to see how it is and what happens. But I'm putting those words of warning out there to you guys. Maybe it will prove me wrong, and I would love that, because I love getting my hands on a really good MMO. But I'm also long enough in the tooth now to know that that doesn't satisfy every bit of me. It was great that they've obviously got one element there in the Kickstarter where there is some association with the role-play tabletop games. I want to make sure that they will retain that and give even more benefits and rewards to the role-play tabletop games through the experience of having played the MMO. They should actively encourage you to go away from the MMO and also play the tabletop games. They should deeply incorporate somewhere, some sort of like cross-licensing thing. You know, you get the MMO, you buy the DLC pack, and the DLC pack gives you maybe some voucher code good for one use in there to be able to get money off the next tabletop game module thing, support bestiary, whatever book you fancy. Just something to help support it and give you incentive to cross over and buy from the computer game into the tabletop game. They might be thinking, okay, well, most of our players are going to be players of Pathfinder anyway, but, you know, realistically, people are going to jump on board if it was that good a quality. To really make it as an MMO, they need to get an audience bigger than just the Pathfinder tabletop players anyway, or they've already failed. I'm sorry, guys, but because you're all split up into sub-demographics. Some of you are still playing D&D, some of you are off playing other systems, and you're not all Pathfinder players, are you? Just some of you are, and that's not going to cut it for a top-tier MMO, so you know, they would have to be drawing in people that are new and haven't played either of the sources. They need to honour their source, and as long as they do that, I won't be too cross. So, take this in mind, Paizo and Goblin Works. Take my words on board, okay? This is good constructive feedback for you, and I wish you absolute success with this. All the very best, and let's try and make a good quality product in our tabletops and on our computer games that we're going to get to experience into the future. This has been Robert James Fremantle bringing you a news update on the tabletop roleplay gaming. Thanks for joining me in this, and I will see you at the next video. See you at the table.